Got another question from the regular chat. Ryan Smith. I'm new getting into the drone or quad life. I was wondering, being a newbie and never flying a quad, where should I start? Go for a crazy racing quad or something not so crazy? What are your thoughts? The first thing, and we got advice here from Fly High FPV with the same advice. Good advice. We say it with me, sing it with me, kids. Start on a simulator. Pick a simulator. Velocidrone, Liftoff, DRL. There are some paid simulators. There are some free ones. If you search my channel for best simulator, we did a roundup. Me and Blenty did a roundup of simulators. But it kind of doesn't matter. Find one that appeals to you. It has to be an FPV focused simulator. I'm not talking about something like Real Flight that's more focused on like RC planes. Something FPV focused, drone focused. And then get a controller. And then I recommend that it be an RC controller, not like an Xbox controller. You can learn on an Xbox controller, but it's harder. That RC controller will translate over and you'll use it to fly your real drones. You'll use it to fly the simulator. So it's maybe you might invest $60 to $100 on a basic controller, which, I mean, that's not like nothing, but it'll be a good investment if you get into the hobby, and if not, you sell it to somebody else, get $50 for it. You know, it's a little bit of a punt. And then just practice in the simulator. And when you first start, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to crash a lot. You're going to be like, how does anybody do this? And that's why you should start in the simulator and not with a real quad, because that is exactly what will happen with a real quad the first time you fly it, except every time you crash it, it costs you $25 to $75. So practice in the simulator. And once you get to the point in the simulator where you can fly around a little bit, then you can go to mostly whatever you want. Even a powerful racing drone, as long as you're careful on the throttle, you'll probably be able to control it. And you can always turn the power down in beta flight if you really want to. So that's where you start. Now, North 49 RC says, try the small 1S whoops. I'm not sure I agree with that. I tried to teach somebody to fly a while back. It was in a Rotor Ride episode. And the problem with learning to fly on a 1S whoops are actually harder to fly in a lot of ways than 5-inch freestyle drones. Tiny whoops are very sensitive on the throttle. It's tricky to manage altitude, whereas a heavier quad has more momentum, more mass, and so the throttle is just a little bit damped. And the other thing is, if you try to fly a tiny whoop outdoors, you usually have a bad time. Not always, but they can be windy. You can lose it in a tree. So if you try to fly it indoors, it's very difficult to fly indoors because you just crash instantly. I don't actually think a 1S whoop is the best way to learn to fly, to be honest with you. 1S whoops, people think they're good for beginners because when you crash them, they don't break. And if you lose them or crash them or damage them, they're not that expensive. But they're actually trickier to fly than a bigger quad to a certain point. So I would say like something like a 95 millimeter or maybe a 75 or 85 millimeter, something like an Emax Tiny Hawk would be about the smallest thing I would say, like if you're looking for a first quad, something like a Tiny Hawk maybe. But even that, I think, you're going to struggle. And you really should just start in the simulator. Always.